What if the most gripping war films of the 1970s never came from Hollywood at all? Imagine soldiers filmed by directors who lived through occupation. Imagine realism so raw it terrified censors. Across Europe and Asia, hidden masterpieces were made. They were daring, political, and unforgettable. These are 12 overlooked 1970s war movies from outside Hollywood that history nearly erased. Let us begin. Number 12. The Ascent, 1977. In the final decade of the Soviet Union's artistic thaw, Larissa Shepytko released The Ascent. It was not a blockbuster. It was a haunting moral test. Set in the frozen hell of Nazi-occupied Belarus, it followed two partisans captured by German troops. One resists until death, the other betrays his comrade. It was not action. It was agony. The Soviet authorities feared it. Its depiction of betrayal felt uncomfortably close to the political climate of the time. Shepytko used stark black and white cinematography to strip away all heroism. The film's religious symbolism challenged official atheism, yet it slipped through the censors thanks to its surface patriotism. Behind the scenes, Shepytko pushed her crew through sub-zero temperatures to capture authentic suffering. Actors fainted. Equipment froze. But the result was chilling realism. Critics compared it to Dreyer's Passion of Joan of Arc. It won the Golden Bear at Berlin, yet was quietly shelved at home. Shepytko died in a car crash soon after leaving behind this single, unshakable masterpiece. The Ascent became her final ascent, both spiritual and cinematic. Today, it stands as proof that faith, guilt, and survival can coexist within one human face. Number 11. The Bridge, 1971. This West German drama reopened wounds that most of the nation preferred to forget. Bernhard Wicki's earlier version was famous in the 50s, but the 1971 television remake hit harder. It told of teenage boys forced to defend a collapsing bridge against American tanks as the Third Reich crumbled. The film avoided glory. Instead, it showed confusion, fear, and propaganda's destruction of youth. Many German broadcasters hesitated to air it. Veterans groups protested that it insulted the fallen. Politicians called it defeatist. That only made it more truthful. Production faced resistance from local councils who refused filming permits near war memorials. Some extras quit after realizing they would play Nazi soldiers. Yet the crew persisted. They rebuilt the bridge entirely from scrap and explosives, creating one of the most convincing battle sequences in European television history. Audiences wept. Schools used it as a cautionary tale. Decades later, its anti-war message still resonates stronger than any patriotic slogan. The bridge did not celebrate sacrifice. It mourned the loss of innocence. Every plank of that bridge carried the weight of a nation's guilt. Number 10. The Battle of Neretva, 1972. This was Yugoslavia's most ambitious film ever produced. Directed by Veljko Bulajic, it united actors from both East and West, including Yul Brynner and Orson Welles. It was meant to show partisan bravery during the Neretva River Offensive of World War II. But what began as propaganda became an epic too powerful for its own regime. Real tanks were blown up. Entire villages were flooded to capture realism. Hundreds of extras were injured. The state spent more on explosions than on national education that year. Posters were even designed by Pablo Picasso. But the chaos off-camera mirrored the chaos on screen. Soviet advisors wanted ideological purity. Western financiers wanted spectacle. Bulajic delivered both, and neither. When Yugoslavia later fractured, the film was banned in several successor states for its political ambiguity. Still, the Battle of Neretva remains monumental. Its imagery rivaled Hollywood's bridge on the River Kwai, but its heart was Balkan. It revealed how propaganda and art often collide, leaving ruins that outlast victory. The smoke of that battle never cleared. It lingers in the memory of a divided world. Number 9. Come and See, 1985. Though released later in 1985, Come and See began its painful journey during the late 70s. Elim Klimov fought Soviet censors for years to make it. His vision was too raw, too real. The story followed a young Belarusian boy who joins the resistance only to witness unimaginable atrocities. It was inspired by real partisan accounts that officials tried to suppress. Klimov shot in the swamps and forests where massacres had actually occurred. He wanted the horror to be unfiltered. The boy actor, Alexei Kravchenko, was hypnotized by a psychiatrist before takes to endure the trauma. Real ammunition was fired around him. Explosions scorched the ground. The crew suffered frostbite, malnutrition, and exhaustion. Klimov refused to use studio lighting. Everything was natural and terrifying. For years, the Ministry of Culture delayed approval, calling the film too nihilistic. They feared it would damage the heroic myth of Soviet victory. But Klimov persisted. He argued that war must be remembered, not celebrated. When the film finally premiered, it silenced audiences. No one applauded. Some fainted. Others cried in stunned silence. International critics hailed it as one of the greatest anti-war statements ever filmed. The haunting close-up of the boy's face, aged beyond recognition, became iconic. Today, Come and See stands as a monument to realism, born from censorship's shadow. It proved that art could survive even the most suffocating system. In its ashes, we find truth stripped of propaganda. War never looked more human or more inhuman. Number 8. The Red Detachment of Women, 1971. China's Cultural Revolution was a time when most art was destroyed or controlled. Yet out of that control emerged a paradoxical masterpiece. The Red Detachment of Women was both propaganda and rebellion. It told of female soldiers rising against oppression during the Chinese Civil War. On paper, it was approved by the party. On screen, it revealed far more. Director Xi Jin hid emotion beneath ideology. His lead actress, Zhu Xihuan, trained with real soldiers. The film's choreography combined ballet with gunfire, turning battle into movement. Each frame shimmered with visual precision, yet carried quiet defiance. When Madame Mao herself endorsed the movie, it spread across China. Millions watched it. But few noticed the buried message about individuality and endurance. Behind the camera, Xi Jin faced suspicion from the Red Guards. They monitored every scene. He was forced to reshoot moments that seemed too personal. Yet he continued filming in secret to capture raw reactions. Some say he encoded subtle criticism within framing and color tone. The state never realized. Decades later, The Red Detachment of Women was reevaluated as both a revolutionary ballet film and a feminist war statement. It broke boundaries even within its prison of propaganda. Today, film scholars see it as one of the few cultural revolution films that truly endure. It proved that even under censorship, art can whisper truth louder than slogans. Number 7. The Cranes Are Flying, 1957. While technically from the 50s, The Cranes Are Flying returned in the 70s as a powerful revival across Eastern Europe. Mikhail Kalatozov's film was rediscovered by a generation disillusioned by Cold War propaganda. Its tragic love story, set during World War II, spoke again to young audiences facing a future shaped by fear. The movie followed Veronica and Boris, torn apart by war. She loses him to the front line and falls victim to betrayal and survival guilt. The camera floated through ruins in sweeping handheld shots that felt decades ahead of their time. When it resurfaced in the 70s, film festivals from Prague to Belgrade celebrated it as revolutionary cinema rediscovered. But its rebirth faced resistance. Some governments accused it of undermining patriotic narratives. Television networks censored scenes showing despair, yet underground screenings spread across universities. Young filmmakers studied its motion. Kalatozov's dizzying cinematography became a language of rebellion. By the late 70s, The Cranes Are Flying symbolized the endurance of art beyond political borders. Its renewed success inspired the next wave of Eastern European directors to explore emotion over ideology. It reminded a fractured continent that even within war tenderness survives. The cranes flying over a ruined city became a vision of freedom, never grounded by time or regime. Number 6. The Odd Angry Shot, 1979, Australia. Australia had long remained silent about its role in Vietnam until The Odd Angry Shot arrived. Directed by Tom Jeffrey and starring a young Brian Brown, it became the first Australian film to show that war from a soldier's point of view without glorifying it. There were no speeches, no victories, and no patriotic music. Only rain sweat and fear. The film followed a group of Australian SAS soldiers deployed in Vietnam. Their daily life was filled with boredom broken by sudden bursts of violence. The odd, angry shot of the title captured that terrifying randomness of death. Soldiers joked, drank, and dreamed of home between ambushes. Yet beneath the banter, the film exposed psychological scars ignored by politicians. When released, it met resistance. Australian networks feared public backlash against its portrayal of disillusioned veterans. The government offered no support for its production. Vietnam was still a wound. Jeffrey financed it partly through personal loans. The shoot took place in the harsh Queensland jungles where cast and crew lived in military conditions. Soldiers who had fought in Vietnam served as technical advisors, often breaking down during filming. Critics were divided. Some called it unpatriotic. Others saw it as a landmark of honesty. It did not earn big box office numbers, but it gained cult status over time. Veterans embraced it as the only film that truly understood them. Decades later, historians credited The Odd Angry Shot with opening Australia's cinematic conscience to the emotional cost of modern war. It was not about battles. It was about what happens when the battle never ends inside the human mind. Number 5. The Dawns Here Are Quiet, 1972, Soviet Union. Few war films carry the poetry of The Dawns Here Are Quiet. Directed by Stanislav Rostotsky. This Soviet gem followed a group of young female anti-aircraft gunners defending a remote outpost during World War II. It began as an adaptation of Boris Vasilyev's novel and turned into one of the most emotional anti-war films ever made. Audiences expected propaganda. What they got was tenderness. The film lingered on friendship, laughter, and fleeting beauty before tragedy struck. Rostotsky filmed in the misty forests of Karelia, creating a dreamlike setting that slowly turned into nightmare. Each woman had a backstory, a dream of life interrupted. When German paratroopers arrived, their innocence vanished under gunfire. Soviet authorities initially hesitated. The story's emotional realism seemed too vulnerable. But Rostotsky himself was a war veteran, and his sincerity protected the project. The film became an unexpected sensation across the Eastern Bloc, winning awards in Moscow, Cannes, and Japan. It was nominated for an Academy Award, yet remained unseen in the West for decades. Behind the scenes, the production endured freezing temperatures. Actresses trained with real soldiers and lived in military tents. Rostotsky demanded authenticity even in tears. No glycerin was used. The cold wind made the crying real. After its release, many Soviet citizens said they saw their mothers and sisters in those girls. Its legacy endures. Remade multiple times across generations, it continues to remind audiences that war does not discriminate. The dawns may be quiet, but they echo with the cries of forgotten heroes. Number 4, Cross of Iron, 1977, West Germany. Sam Peckinpah's Cross of Iron was a European production disguised as a German war epic. Shot in Yugoslavia with funding from both West Germany and Britain, it became the first major film to show World War II entirely from the German soldier's perspective without ideology or heroism. It was brutal, cynical, and honest. James Coburn played Sergeant Steiner, a weary veteran caught between loyalty to his men and hatred for his arrogant aristocratic commander. Peckinpah's trademark slow-motion violence exploded across muddy battlefields. Yet beneath the chaos was moral decay. These soldiers no longer fought for belief, only for survival. The production was nightmarish. Peckinpah clashed with German producers over cost overruns. He demanded real explosions and live ammunition to achieve his grim realism. Actors were injured. Crew members quit. Rumors spread that Peckinpah was drinking heavily on set. Yet out of the turmoil came cinematic brilliance. When released, Cross of Iron faced bans in several countries due to its shocking realism and unpatriotic tone. West German critics called it offensive, but others hailed it as the greatest anti-war film since Paths of Glory. It found unexpected success in Eastern Europe, where audiences recognized its condemnation of blind obedience. Decades later, Quentin Tarantino and John Woo cited it as a major influence. Its haunting ending, a freeze frame of laughter and gunfire, remains unforgettable. Cross of Iron shattered myths of honor and replaced them with the dirt and despair of real war. It spoke not of victory, but of the loss that victory always demands. Number 3. The 317th Platoon, 1965. Before Apocalypse Now or Platoon, there was the 317th Platoon, a film that stripped war of glamour long before Hollywood dared. Directed by Pierre Schoendorfer, a veteran of France's Indochina War, it was shot in Cambodia with such realism that many thought it was documentary footage. Though released in the mid-60s, it resurfaced in the 70s when Vietnam dominated headlines and France still wrestled with its colonial guilt. The story follows a small French unit and their Laotian allies stranded behind enemy lines in 1954, trudging through rain and jungle after the fall of Dien Bien Phu. No speeches, no victories, just exhaustion and silence. Schoendorfer filmed with handheld cameras and natural light. His cast lived as soldiers did, sleeping in mud and fighting leeches. Every gunshot echoed futility. Censors called it defeatist. The military condemned it for showing collapse rather than courage. But word spread quietly through universities and film circles. By the 70s, critics recognized its brutal honesty. American directors like Coppola and Oliver Stone later cited it as a key influence on their own Vietnam epics. What made the 317th Platoon unforgettable wasn't spectacle, it was surrender. When the final radio signal fades beneath jungle rain, it feels less like an ending than history dissolving. Schoendorfer's film remains one of cinema's purest portraits of men lost between empire and extinction, a reminder that sometimes the only truth war leaves behind is silence. Number 2. The Human Condition. Part 3, 1961. Masaki Kobayashi's epic The Human Condition concluded long before the 70s, yet its resurrection during that decade reignited Japan's conscience. Western distributors finally screened the full 9-hour trilogy in art house circuits. The third part, A Soldier's Prayer, dominated discussions among pacifists and students protesting the Vietnam War. Kobayashi himself had been drafted in World War II and imprisoned for defying orders. His trilogy chronicled the moral collapse of a kind man forced into the Japanese army. When it reached its final part, viewers witnessed a shattered protagonist wandering through the ruins of Manchuria, searching for humanity. No film had dared depict the Japanese soldier as both victim and oppressor with such honesty. During the 70s, the film was banned in several Asian territories, still nursing wartime bitterness. Government broadcasters refused to air it, claiming it weakened national spirit. But underground screenings spread among universities. Students projected bootleg copies on dorm walls. Some wept. Others formed film clubs dedicated to anti-war cinema. Critics in France and Germany called it the greatest war epic ever made. Kobayashi's meticulous framing and use of silence became a blueprint for directors like Tarkovsky and Spielberg. Though not produced in the 70s, its rediscovery defined the decade's anti-war conversation. The Human Condition revealed that true war cinema does not glorify struggle. It exposes the emptiness that follows obedience. By the time credits rolled, audiences felt not anger, but mourning for every side of conflict. Number 1. Z. 1969, France and Algeria. Costa Gavras's Z exploded into global consciousness at the dawn of the 70s. It was not a war film by traditional definition, yet its political warfare cut deeper than bullets. Set in an unnamed Mediterranean dictatorship, it dramatized the assassination of a peace activist and the military cover-up that followed. It mirrored real events in Greece, but the director never named the country to evade censorship. The film was shot in Algeria after the Greek junta banned it. Soldiers from Algeria played the police of Greece. Locals whispered that Costa Gavras was being watched by foreign agents. Crew members hid reels between hotel rooms each night in case authorities raided the set. When Z premiered, it was instantly banned in Greece and several South American nations under military rule. Yet it won the jury prize at Cannes and the Academy Award for Best Foreign Film. Its political impact was so immense that the Greek dictatorship outlawed even the letter Z, claiming it symbolized resistance. Students painted it on walls as shorthand for "He lives." Behind the camera, Yves Montand nearly died filming the assassination scene when a real club strike fractured his skull. Costa Gavras refused to cut the take. The resulting realism stunned audiences. The rhythmic editing and pounding score by Mikis Theodorakis transformed protest into cinematic revolution. By the late 70s, Z had become the anthem of political dissent worldwide. It showed that war was not always fought with guns, but with truth against power. The film's energy fueled an entire generation of filmmakers across Europe, Latin America, and the Middle East who saw cinema as a weapon of exposure. Z reminded the world that silence is surrender and that courage can survive through art. 12 overlooked war films from outside Hollywood taught us that truth survives even under censorship. Each was born from courage pain and the refusal to lie. They proved that war cinema is not about glory, but humanity. Which of these hidden masterpieces spoke to you most? Tell us below. Like, share, and subscribe to keep history alive through film before it fades again into silence.